I got regrets from Councillor Dehaney tonight. She's unable to attend. So I'll call this meeting to order at 7 p.m. and I'll read the land acknowledgement. As visitors on this land, the town of Bradford, Gwillimbury acknowledges that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe Nation, which includes Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi Nation, collectively known as Three Fires Confederacy. We recognize that the Huron-Wendat, Chippewa, and Haudenosaunee nations have walked on this territory over time. In times of great change, we recognize more than ever the importance of honoring Indigenous history and culture and are committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation, respect, and good health with all First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people. So Council number 2, adoption of the agenda. I have a recommendation that the special council meeting dated October 14th, 2025 be adopted as printed. Moved by Councillor Kike, seconded by Councillor Dykey. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Declaration of pecuniary interest in general nature, you can declare now, or if you find yourself in that issue later, let me know. Seeing none right now. We're on to section 4, public information meeting. Applications for official plan amendments, zoning bylaw amendments, draft plan of subdivision, and heritage designation. So introduction of the purpose of the meeting. This meeting is a statutory public meeting held pursuant to sections 17, 22, 34, and 51 of the Planning Act to discuss amendments to the town's official plan, zoning bylaw 2010-050, and draft plans of subdivision. The town has received applications that have been deemed complete under the Planning Act and is therefore required to hold this public meeting as part of the application review process. Additionally, in accordance with section 41 of the Ontario Heritage Act, this meeting serves as a statutory public meeting required before the enactment of a heritage designation bylaw for the Bond Head Heritage Conservation District. Members of the public will be given the opportunity to speak following the presentations, and the comments presented at this public meeting are being recorded by staff. Personal information is being recorded according to the Municipal Act and the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Questions regarding the collection and use of personal information should be directed to the clerk. If a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the Council of the Town of Bradford, Gwillimbury to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Town of Bradford, Gwillimbury before the proposed bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Town of Bradford before the proposed bylaw is passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. So we're on to 4.2, the public information meeting, application zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision. Agent Jones Consulting Group. So planning report number 1. Planning staff will now present the contents of the staff report. Please note that the staff report being presented pertains to a proposed zoning bylaw amendment and a draft plan of subdivision. The presentation by staff will contain an update on comments received to date and does not include a recommendation on the proposal. Town staff will provide a report at a later date, which will also reflect and consider the public comments made during this public meeting and written submissions received before the report is written. I turn it over to you, Mr. Weeb.
Thank you, Mayor Leduc, and good evening, members of council and members of the public. So I'm going to be presenting the public information meeting content for the applications for draft plan of subdivision D12-25-10 and zoning bylaw amendment D12-2509 by Sandstorm Development Inc. There are representatives on behalf of the applicant in the audience this evening. Happy to identify them at the end of my presentation for further questions that council may have. And I am filling in for Ms. Land, the project planner on this file this evening, who will be presuming carriage of the file upon return to the office. Next slide, please. For a bit of an overview of the presentation, certainly we touch on the statutory content under the Planning Act, including the purpose of the public meeting, to welcome and receive public comments as well as comments from members of council. We'll go through a bit of an overview of the subject lands and the existing land use planning policies and zoning regulations. We'll review the applications, go over the public notice that was provided, as well as share a summary of the comments that were received, and provide some concluding remarks in terms of next steps beyond the public meeting. And on the, Back, please. And certainly the subject lands are located in the black outline in the location map, with the residential to the north and commercial to the south, generally speaking. Sorry, next slide, please, Tara. Thank you. So the public meeting this evening is essentially in the middle of the lifespan of the processing of the applications for draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment. The applications were deemed complete in early September and circulated to internal departments, external agencies, and to the public through the notice that was mailed out and through the signage posted on the property on September 16th. After this public meeting, the review of the applications will continue. We will be receiving additional comments from, welcoming additional comments from members of the public, as well as receiving and considering comments from external agencies and internal departments, and at a later date providing a recommendation report to council with all of that in mind. Next slide, please. Thank you. The subject lands are outlined in red in the image on the right in the slide. They're located east of Langford Boulevard and west of Paisley Drive. They have an area of just under 2 hectares, or just under 4 acres in size. They're currently vacant with some stockpiled materials on there at the moment, and surrounding land uses to the south include commercial, including the Food Basics grocery store. To the west, commercial and industrial developments, including Walmart, Kumi to the north, and other northwest, and other industrial land users along Reagents. And to the east and north and northeast, residential development with prior phases of the Sandstorm subdivision. Next slide, please. In the town's current official plan, the subject lands are designated as medium density residential and are located in Special Policy Area 15. The medium density residential, as shown on the screen, does permit a wide range of dwelling types, including townhouse dwellings and apartments with a density of up to 50 units per net residential hectare. And the special policy area that applies to the subject lands, as well as the area to the east and to the northeast, does also include permission for single detached and semi-detached dwellings. Next slide, please. In the town zoning bylaw, the blocks are currently zoned as future development, as they've sat since approximately the 2010 zoning bylaw, I believe, again with the residential zoning to the east and north, industrial zoning to the west and northwest, and commercial zoning to the south, just outside the pane of the image shown here. Next slide, please. So the proposed development initially consists of a proposed draft plan of subdivision that seeks to introduce a new crescent road that would have 2 connections to Paisley Drive. The first at a near the northerly extent of Paisley Drive, and the other at the southerly extent, with blocks proposed for street townhouses within the Crescent Road and detached homes proposed along Langford Boulevard. And just along the northerly edge, there is also a proposed servicing block that I believe currently contains, if I'm not mistaken, stormwater management infrastructure, as well as would contain a proposed walkway as part of the proposed development of the lands. Next slide, please. So whereas the lands are currently zoned as future development, Sandstorm has proposed to rezone the lands to 2 different zone categories. The first one to accommodate the proposed 40 street townhomes. Sandstorm has proposed the residential 2 exception zone that would also seek site-specific variation from the parent zone standards in 4 different ways. The first would be to reduce the minimum exterior side yard setback from 3.5 down to 2 meters. To reduce the minimum rear yard setback from 6 meters to 5 meters, reduce the minimum lot area per unit for townhouses from 170 square meters to 165, and also to seek permission for unenclosed porches to encroach into a site triangle. And that, of course, would not allow unenclosed porches to encroach into a daylight triangle simply where a site triangle is more restrictive into the property than a daylight, would still allow the unenclosed porch to be within the boundaries of the property, just not, but within a site triangle, otherwise specified in the zoning bylaw. With respect to the areas of land, the lots adjacent to Langford, they're proposing for the 15 detached homes to rezone those lots to the residential 1 exception, with a few site-specific performance standards as well. First of all, to define the lot line along Langford as the front lot line. Second, to reduce the minimum rear yard setback from 7.5 to 6 meters. To eliminate the maximum width of garage door openings facing a public street, which would only apply for lots having a frontage of 11.6 meters or less. It's a very specific standard in our zoning bylaw. And last but not least, also to include permission for unenclosed porches to encroach into a site triangle. In addition to those, for all of the lots and blocks proposed within the draft plan, Sandstorm is also looking to have the lots and blocks identified as a Class 4 area due to the existing and future stationary noise levels, essentially noise levels that would otherwise exceed the acceptable threshold under the Ministry of the Environment's guidelines for residential developments. Next slide, please. In support of the applications, Sandstorm has submitted a wide range of studies, typical with the application for draft plan of subdivision and zoning amendment process, including the draft plan of subdivision drawing that was shown earlier, the draft zoning bylaw amendment from which the contents of the previous slide were shown, along with a bunch of others: hydrogeological investigation, civil engineering materials, environmental noise report, traffic study, fiscal impact assessment, and so forth, all of which are available for public viewing. Next slide, please. With respect to public notice, as previously mentioned, in mid-September, notice was provided by way of posting signage on the subject blocks, and property owners within 120 meters were also notified by way of a notice of complete application and public meeting by mail. As is standard with the town's notice-giving practices, notice was also published in the Bradford Today as well as to the town's website, and last but not least, also included on the town's Growth Services Data Hub. Next slide, please. As of this point in the public consultation process, we have received one comment from a member of the public, and perhaps I'll abstain from reading this one aloud. It is referenced in the staff report, but included here for reference as well, all of which is publicly available on this evening's council agenda. Next slide, please. Additionally, as of this point, we have also received comments from a number of external agencies, many of which have provided standard comments, such as Bell, Canada Post, County of Simcoe, Enbridge, and some of which have also requested the inclusion of specific conditions of approval should council elect to grant draft plan approval to the proposed subdivision. Additionally, the town's Parks and Properties Division has also provided some landscaping comments for consideration, which would be implemented at a more detailed level through detailed design should council elect to grant draft plan of subdivision approval. Next slide, please. So that concludes the staff portion of the public meeting. Certainly, as I mentioned before, representatives of the applicant are in attendance this evening. Otherwise, certainly staff will be taking note of the comments received from members of the public as well as members of council, and all of which would be addressed in a future recommendation report to council. Also, for any additional information or for providing further comments, members of the public are welcome to provide them directly to the project planner, Ms. Priscilla Lan, whose email address is shown on the last slide of the presentation and has otherwise been provided in the notice that was mailed out to the public. Thank you, Your Worship. That concludes staff's presentation on this application.
Thank you very much, Mr. Weaver. Well done. All right, now the applicant, if they'd like to, we invite you up now if you'd like to provide any additional details on the proposal.
Good evening, Council. My name is Amanda Newlove, and I am the agent project planner on the flyer representing from the Jones Consulting Group. I am also joined by a representative of the applicant from Great Gulf. I do have a brief presentation. Thank you so much to staff for providing that information. I will try not to repeat a lot of what staff has said. I'll just highlight a few of other key points, and I'll let the applicant provide some concluding remarks as well. So we are here today for a zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision application for the lands outlined in red. Next slide, please. As staff had mentioned, the lands are not too far from where we are today, actually. Just north, there are existing residential uses of single detached and semi-detached, and to the east, there are existing townhouses. The lands to the south are commercial, and the lands to the west are industrial. There's also a large landscaped buffer and berm. The key point that I want to, you'll hear me say throughout this presentation, is this is known as the subdivision of Summerlin Village. It's been developing for quite a number of years, and this will be the final phase of this subdivision. Next slide, please. So here's some site pictures showing the existing built form. As you can see, the residential uses to the north of singles and semis, as well as to the east of the townhouses. The intent and the design of this final phase is to be consistent with this built form and match the urban design that was originally intended. You can also see the landscaped berm directly to the west, which provides that buffer to the industrial uses, as well as the commercial uses directly south. Next slide, please. So this is the draft plan of subdivision. As staff had mentioned, we are proposing 40 townhouse units as well as 15 single detached dwellings. The single detached dwellings will architecturally and accessed by Langford Boulevard, and the townhouse dwellings will be accessed by the proposed Street A, which will be connected to the existing Paisley Drive. There will also be a servicing block which will be landscaped and contain a walkway to connect to the existing sidewalk along Langford Boulevard. Next slide, please. So as mentioned, this is part of the overall subdivision plan of Summerlin Village. So in the bottom left corner in red is the final phase of the overall subdivision. As staff had mentioned, we did receive a comment on public parkland, and this shows that the overall subdivision parkland was planned for and incorporated, and this site will remain residential, not including the pedestrian walkway to connect with. In addition, there is the EP lands, and essentially this is going to be residential in nature to be consistent with that surrounding built form. Next slide, please. These are also some preliminary renderings, specifically a 2-story built form, again to be consistent with those site photos that you saw earlier. Next slide, please. So again, as staff had mentioned, a list of technical work was submitted, including but not limited to what you see on the screen. Next slide, please. Part of that technical work was our planning justification report, and it is our opinion that the proposed development has regard to matters of provincial interest as well as consistent with the PPS. The lands are in a settlement area, going to be connected to municipal services, contain a mix of housing forms, and again will complete the overall intent of the lands of being Summerlin Village. Next slide, please. As noted, the lands are in the Bradford settlement area, which permits a range of land uses, including residential. Next slide, please. The lands are designated medium density residential, which permits townhouses and apartments. The subject lands did receive approval for an official plan amendment in 2019, which established a special policy area 15, which provided greater flexibility in that area outlined in gray, which includes the subject lands. So that was to also permit single detached dwellings and semi-detached dwellings to again provide that consistent built form in a greater area. Next slide, please. The lands also went through a zoning bylaw amendment application, which rezoned the blocks to future development. So again, it was always the intent that these lands were to be developed as part of Summerlin Village, and this will be the final phase to complete that objective. Next slide, please. So as noted, the zoning bylaw amendment does list a few exceptions. It should be noted that these exceptions are consistent with many of the exceptions approved directly to the north and east. So it's to provide, again, that consistent built form, as well as comply with the urban design standards that were specifically prepared for Summerlin Village. And as staff had mentioned, the original exception in this case is to identify that the lands are going to be within a class 4 area. And this is because over time, the commercial uses have expanded, and there's also further commercial uses proposed. And it's to recognize those noise levels that this area will experience. This will be further addressed as per the ministry guidelines, so such as warning clauses to all future purchasers, etc., which will be further reviewed by staff. But this designation will allow that to meet the ministry guidelines. So thank you so much for your time. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions with staff, and I will turn it over to my colleague for any concluding comments.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of council. My name is Wei Guo. I'm the Planning and Design Director with Grey Gulf Homes. Sandstorm is one of our largest subdivisions. I remember the first phase was built more than 10 years ago. The plan we are looking at is phase 9, which is the last phase of the project. Once this phase is constructed, we will be very happy to see the community will be finally completed. If any questions, Amanda and I will try to answer them.
All right, thank you so much for that. I'll have the public participate now, and then we'll get to questions after, if you don't mind.
So I guess to
Yeah, just.
thank you through the chair.
So public participation. Members of the public are now invited to address council and provide any comments and ask questions. Please provide your name and speak directly into the microphone. If residents have prepared a written submission that they are reading from, please submit to the clerk upon completion of your presentation, which is over there. So I will make a first call. I have nobody signed up right now for this, but I'll make a first call for any residents who'd like to speak to this development. I'll make a second call for any residents that would like to speak to this development. And then I will make a third and final call. Okay, so seeing none, council, now I ask if council has any questions on this development. I turn over to council. Any questions from this? Councillor Dykey?
Excuse me. I must say that Great Gulf did a nice community plan from the beginning. When you look back when this plan subdivision started, like I had some concerns at the beginning, but they built a fine community in Somerville subdivisions. But the questions I have, one question to you. I recall, I know that you called this your last phase. I believe there is another land holding to the west. Is that they talked about? I remember going to the sales office here when they're closing the homes down there, that they were talking about possibly condos on Holland Street. Is that part of this subdivision, or has that been cut off from that subdivision? The town's been involved in that. I just wanted to know what the intent is for the future.
You direct that question to Alan or to our staff?
No.
Oh, to the developer. Okay. Yeah, Amanda, you want to come up and answer that?
Thank you, through the chair. So you are correct. So these blocks were originally noted as a higher density built form, but because of there's a few different reasons. The first is the market conditions. The second is the noise. So to address the noise concerns, essentially the higher built form, the increased mitigation measures and restrictions there are. In addition, with the noise, and specifically apartment buildings, there's even restrictions on the location of where they could be located, which again, in the renderings, you can see this is going to be a 2-story built form. So that class 4 designation, as well as the lower density, which again, in our opinion, will be consistent with what's surrounding, will address those restrictions in a much better way to create a faster and more constructible product. Absolutely.
Okay. Any further comments or questions for clarity from council? Okay, thank you, Amanda.
Thank
Seeing
you.
none, so we'll move on to 3 then. Further action. Council will not make a decision on this matter tonight, but will receive the staff report for information. The matter will be referred back to staff for a further recommendation report at a later date. So council have recommendation that report PLN 2025-51 be received, and that the comments received in writing and or made at the public meeting be received, and the Office of Community Planning consider the matter raised and address same in its future recommendation report. Mover second, put this on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councilor Kike. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, we are done with that one. We're on to our next planning agenda, and it is our Bond Head Heritage Conservation District. So planning report, the planning staff will now present the contents of the staff report. We'll call up Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council and members of the public. As a little bit of a background, on August 5th, council received a report and supported staff's recommendation in designating the Bond Head downtown core as a heritage conservation district and endorsed the plan and guidelines for that project. As a requirement under the Ontario Heritage Act, prior to signing the bylaw, we are required to host a statutory public meeting. So the purpose of tonight's event is to meet those legislative requirements, hear any comments from members of the public, and then update the planning guidelines as necessary. So notice of tonight's public meeting was issued in accordance with the Ontario Heritage Act, serving notice to each resident within the district and emailing those interested parties. Next slide. Next slide. So the contents of the Heritage District Plan were provided to the town by our consultant ARA in May of 2025. It covers the heritage value objectives, property status, district policies, and really looks to implement best practices that we would use to guide that change within the district. The planning guidelines were published to the town's website in May. And I'll be focusing on kind of the latter half of the content, so I won't go into absolutely everything. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So the Heritage Conservation District Planning Guidelines separates each property within the district into either a contributing property or a supporting property. A contributing property are those properties that do meet criteria for designation under the Ontario Heritage Act. Those properties on the map are listed in yellow, and supporting properties are those properties that do not meet heritage designation under the Act, but do have but all the properties within the district would be subject to the plan and guidelines, just at a different level, so some might require more permits than the others. Next slide, please. In addition, ARA completed property data sheets for each of the properties within the district, and here are two examples of a property that is a contributing property, which has cultural heritage value as well as built heritage attributes, and another example of a supporting property that does not have any cultural heritage value or any built heritage attributes. Next slide, please. Next slide. So consultation on the Heritage District in its entirety began in May 2018, and we've had many touch points with our Heritage Committee, members of council, as well as the public via Zoom and in-person public meetings. Next slide, please. The feedback we got from members of the public was that they wanted it to be a light touching document, so they didn't want it to be overly burdensome or excessive as they look to live and enjoy their properties. One of the key components of a heritage conservation district is the implementation of a heritage permit process, and the heritage permit process is divided into 3 categories: major, minor, and exempt. So major permits would be decided on by council, minor permits would be delegated to town staff with consultation with the Heritage Committee, and exempt projects would not need a permit from the town, and a full list of what is required for a permit and what is not is listed in the guidelines. So this is just a rough chart trying to summarize everything for contributing buildings, and then if we go to the next slide, those projects that would require a permit for supporting buildings. So if we go to the next slide. The district plan is broken down into several best practices for pretty much any scenario you would think of, including, just to name off a few, roofs, exterior walls, windows, balconies, non-residential buildings, demolitions, new constructions, secondary structures, lot severances, and these all set best practices for staff, and we would want to work with property owners to achieve this for the district. Next slide. Again, these images are just taken from the district planning guidelines, showing the different scenarios that the guidelines are looking to encourage. So a built form that goes with the existing Bondhead community. Next slide. Next slide. So I thought I would run through a couple of examples. These are not real world examples, so they're just kind of taken from my brain. So in this scenario, the property owner is proposing some changes to their property. So they're looking to add in an addition. They're looking to replace the roof materials. They're looking to just update the windows, but not the window openings. And they're looking to do some landscaping improvements in the front yard. So if we go to the next slide. As staff, we're going to look to see whether or not it is in the district and whether or not it's either a contributing or supporting property. In this case, it is within the district and it is a contributing property. Next slide, please. We would look to the built heritage attributes. There are a few listed there. And if we go to the next slide. Based on the project description of what the property owner is looking to do, 3 of the 4 are exempt. They would not need a permit from the town. If they were looking to do a rear yard addition, so you can't see it from the streetscape, they would need a minor permit, which is delegated to town staff. And if it was a side yard addition, so something you can see from the street line, you would need a major permit, which would require council approval. Next slide, please. This is another example. So this property is looking to add a second-story addition, replace the windows and doors, and do some landscaping improvements on site. Next slide. This property is within the district, but it is a supporting property. So if we go to the next slide, there are no heritage attributes. So if we go to the next slide, the second-story addition would require a major permit. There are a set of best practices within the guidelines that we would follow that really focuses on architectural styles. However, the windows and doors are exempt, and then the landscaping improvements would be a minor permit may be required. I should note that let's also pretend for this example that they're also going through, say, a zoning bylaw amendment. Both the zoning bylaw amendment and the heritage permit can work in tandem with one another. So if this was a zoning bylaw amendment, we'd be here in front of council discussing the zoning amendment as well as the heritage permit. So if we go to the next slide. So this property owner is looking to demolish their building. So if we go to the next slide. It is within the district and it is contributing. If we go to the next slide, very repetitive. There are heritage built attributes that if it were to be demolished, we would lose those attributes. So if we would go to the next slide. A major permit would be required for both the demolition and the construction of a new build. Heritage Committee would continue to make demolition requests and make recommendations to council, and council will still have the final say on any demolition within the district as any other heritage property as well. Go to the next slide. Last example. So this property is looking to do an addition to their property. If we go to the next slide. They are not within the district. They are neither contributing nor supporting. The district has no bearing on properties outside of the district. And then we go to the next slide. Next slide. So since we reported to council in August, there's been a little bit of media attention, as well as we issued notice to all those within the district. So we did get some comments since that date, and many of the comments have been positive of the guidelines themselves, but they were, we did get some comments regarding reconsideration of some of the attributes on their property, as well as wanting to make sure that the HCD planning guideline do not hinder future development opportunities, and had questions regarding major infrastructure and servicing timing of when that would come to Bondhead. And then we also received some comments from residents with more information to make the guideline more up to date with more accurate dates and times of some of when properties have been built. So if we go to the next slide. Next slide. So next steps would be to receive any and all public comments either this evening, either in oral, and I can take furiously notes, as well as I'll be forwarding those to ARA. Following ARA's review of any of the comments we received, we will be bringing back a recommendation report back to council with any required changes between the August plan and the next plan. So it might be an October update or a November update, and then staff will bring a bylaw back to council's bring a bylaw back to council for their approval, and if approved, once the bylaw is signed, staff will issue notice as per the Ontario Heritage Act, and an appeal period will commence. And that appeal period is 30 days long. And then, next slide. And then if anyone does have any written comments that they'd like to provide to me, they can do so by emailing me at tdysart@townofbwg.com. And that's all I got.
Wonderful. Excellent job. Thank you, Thomas. All right, so now we'll go to public participation. Members of the public are now invited to address council and provide any comments and ask questions. Please provide your name and speak directly into the microphone. If residents have prepared a written submission and they are reading from it, please submit to the clerk upon completion of your presentation. So I do have somebody signed up. Adrian Storino. Close enough? I didn't butcher it? Okay, very good. That's unusual. I usually butcher them. The floor is yours for 5 minutes, sir.
Good evening, councillors and Honourable Mayor. If I can have on the screen, Thomas, or whoever did the last presentation, it would be helpful to kind of look at the town itself, where you've got the designations, supportive and the reason why I'm here today this evening is that I think this whole process has been fast-tracked. I know the dates on here are 2018, I believe, but in between there was COVID. In between there was a mill strike. I don't think you've got the synopsis of what the people that live in that community are saying. I had a chance to go through the documents that were submitted as part of this proposal. And if you look at the surveys, they're pretty indicative of what people are saying. The people that live within that community are feeling that people outside that community are putting this punitive designation on their homes. And this is irreversible. Once this goes down, to reverse this is next to impossible. But if you look at this is material from a size component. But more importantly, again, if you look at the comments, and if you look at the second survey, there's question 16, 17, and 18. There are a number of concerns of the residents in this community that we haven't done the job necessary to make this an effective impact to the people, not only outside this community, but the people that are inside. Because to me, this becomes punitive. 10 to 20% of people's houses are going to go down in depreciation, devaluation, because it's designated. That's a big number for most people. And if I'm assuming most of you have gone down Highway 88 and 27, there's buildings there that need repair. And I've talked about this for a number of years. How do we revitalize the town of Blundhead? And this isn't it. This may be part of it, but this isn't the solution in its entirety. We have not talked about transportation. We've talked about the bypass. So how do we implement this without talking about traffic? How do we implement this with talking about revitalization of that community without talking about services? These are all, they go hand in hand. So in my mind, how do we're putting the cart before the horse. We're putting something in place that's meaningful. This is generational. This is not one time. This is generational impact by imposing this. And I compare this to the town of Cookstown, the town of Kleinburg. If this is something that you want to do right, you need to look at all the facets. And right now, I don't see that we have answers to traffic. I don't see answers to the revitalization through services to those community, to those areas that are being impacted. So I posed the question to the councillors and to planning, how do we address those? Because I'm supportive of something that makes something look better. And right now, I'm looking at, as you're driving through that community, I haven't seen any permits, any new activity going on in the last decade. And so if we're talking about revitalization, this is your core. You've got subdivisions on the north side, you've got subdivisions on the east side, and on the south side. So if the only thing we're trying to accomplish here is by appeasing the developers, by having a designated community, then we've done our job. But if we're actually looking at having everybody impacted in a way that I think the intention is everybody should be impacted in a positive way, then you should be looking at the transportation, and you should be looking at infrastructure, and you should be looking at what is the town going to be doing to revitalize that community. That's the core. You guys are selling this feature as the goal point of Bonnet. This doesn't do it. This alone does not create that. Transportation, the bypass, and creating the services that are necessary for people to invest in that area. And without those two, I'm not sure what we're doing here today. So that's my spiel. I feel I'm passionate about doing things better and right. And right now, I don't think we have it done right. And so I know we're rushing through, maybe we're rushing, I think we're rushing through this, but if you guys have gone through these surveys, I've highlighted a good chunk of them, the feedback you're getting from people that live in this community is not moving forward as quickly as we're planning on doing this. Not without addressing transportation and the revitalization through infrastructure of that area. And so you've got development all the way around there. Why aren't we talking about services for that area? Now I could buy into that, because now you're creating the environment for people to invest there, for people to build there, for people to invest money in their homes. Right now, what you've done is you've taken away equity to the houses. That's it. So I beg you to think about what we're actually doing here this evening. I know we're in the last leg of this, but to be honest with you, this is still a point that I think needs to be addressed before we pass this. Thank you.
No, thank you, and we'll try and answer some of those things for you as we move through this process tonight. We'll try and get some information back to you on your transportation and your servicing requirements that you're asking for in that area.
Well, I'm actually saying that they should be done in tandem. You can't do one without the other. So if you're going to pass this and not have the finalization and approved transportation and infrastructure, how do you do one without the other? They have to go hand in hand.
So in particular, when you say transportation, are you talking about the Bonhead bypass?
Yeah, if that's like finalizing that piece of it, yeah. There's got to be a calming of traffic for that community. And so if you finalize it, and there's commitments there, great. If you set infrastructure and you bring services there, that's the other thing. Right now, we don't have either one of those. So how do we do this without doing the other two?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, and I will make calls for second call for any other of the public that want to come speak on the Heritage District Conservation District. Any other I'll make it a third call for residents if they want to come speak on this. Okay, nobody. So maybe I'll get Alan. Do you want to offer up any information on those comments made by Adrian?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the servicing and the transportation, so the Bondhead bypass, though they're important infrastructure projects for Bondhead, and I do see where Mr. Storino is coming from. The two projects, both the preservation of the built heritage of Bondhead and those infrastructure projects, are different, and they kind of don't relate to one another. Certainly, heritage can be seen, preserving heritage can be seen as a tool of revitalization, so guiding the community through change using best practices from other jurisdictions. But in terms of the timing of whether or not we pause this project and wait for those major infrastructure projects to come through, it might not be I don't know how to word it per se. I think they are two separate projects. But if Alan, if you had any, he's more eloquent than me.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Your Worship. The only thing I might add to that is that, as Thomas has shared, whereas the Heritage Conservation District would serve to help preserve the heritage of a lot of the built form that exists in the Bondhead community, to Mr. Storino's point, matters relating to servicing, improvements in servicing in the transportation network might otherwise be components that will help with redevelopment within the area. For instance, whereas properties within the proposed HCD boundary might now be reliant on private individual on-site wells, private individual on-site septic systems. Infrastructure components like that will create constraints that will limit what redevelopment potential or expansion potential those existing built forms have. Water wastewater servicing might help to eliminate those constraints and optimize what potential those properties might have. But the Heritage Conservation District in place, if approved by council, would provide a framework to ensure that the attributes of interest would be protected through such expansions or redevelopments.
Okay, thank you. I know that doesn't quite answer your question, Mr. Storino, but maybe I can add a little bit more to it. When it comes to the infrastructure and servicing of Bondhead, we're certainly trying to focus on the development community to bring those services into that core. I understand what you're saying. It certainly is a very major part of it. But I do agree with both planners that these are two different applications altogether. This is a conservation district versus infrastructure needs. And I think in the future, hopefully we'll see the development community come forward and bring that servicing in. I know now they're running the pipe across from the northeast to the southeast side. They're running the infrastructure to get the housing going on the south side. That is a connection point, hopefully, for the core eventually. So we'll be able to look for that in the near future, hopefully the next few years, to bring that servicing into the core. That's what the goal of that is. And the bypass is something that we've talked about for years. We tried to implement that at the county level because that's a county project. That would be a county project. So we tried to implement that in their last master transportation plan, but we weren't successful at that point. They have it still scheduled out to 2041. That's unacceptable to us. We made it clear to our development community that that's unacceptable, that bypass has to be a part of their overall planning goal for Bondhead. So we made everybody aware of what we thought are important attributes to Bondhead to make sure that we actually redevelop the core to make it much more vibrant and realistic. And these properties will fit into that, hopefully overall in the end. But we're going to do our best to continually force developers to come to the table and bring that bypass project sooner rather than later. We want to bump that up. You know, I'd like to see a 2031 target for that if we can get it to 2031. And like I say, the services are going through. We'll be working with the development community through our official plan, and hopefully we'll force them to bring those services into Bondhead that the residents really require. So they are kind of two different things. I don't think this Heritage Conservation District passing that tonight would hinder those conversations moving forward. So we'll eventually get them there. It's going to take a little bit more time than you would like, but I think this. In my opinion, this district, there is some small change I like to see, but I think it's a good thing moving forward. So, okay. So I have no more comments from the public. So I ask council. I invite council to ask. Pardon? Yeah, I did. Okay. So I ask council if they have any questions on this one. Councilor Giordano.
So I think you attempted to address some of the concerns that I have. I know in Old Town Thornhill, it's a 100-something-year-old area, they had a bunch of designations, and it prevented people from transforming the properties because of the heritage designation. And those homes were considered rental homes forever because nobody would invest in them because of the restrictions placed on it. But from what I'm hearing is that with the development, if there is services that are coming or whatnot, if somebody wants to transform this area like a modernized Kleinburg or parts of Unionville, the heritage area in Unionville, they have the ability to build a 3 or 4 story with the facade and everything else. If both the Heritage Committee makes those suggestions and allows that permit to go through, as well as the final say comes to council, Is that what I got from the presentation? Can you clarify that, please?
Yes, so for any major development project that involves a contributing building with heritage attributes, they would want to consult with the Heritage Committee, and the Heritage Committee would make a recommendation to approve or not approve a heritage permit. But any major permit, such as a redevelopment, like a major redevelopment, would be subject to council approval.
Okay, thanks. And then my follow-up to that is, if somebody was to consolidate multiple lots and the servicing isn't available, some of them have wells or septics or whatnot, how would that impact any future development in the short term?
Thank you. Through your, Mayor Leduc, to Councillor Giordano. So essentially, the redevelopment would be affected by existing constraints on the property, as well as whatever changes to those constraints may be required to support the redevelopment. If they have to increase the size of their septic system, that would be something they'd have to factor into their redevelopment plans in the short term, prior to municipal services being available. In a scenario where municipal services are available, they wouldn't have to contend with those on-site servicing constraints, and would arguably create a set of attributes on the property that would be more conducive to more intensive development in the core.
Yeah, so for example, 27, the amount of people that commute through 27, when I drive to other towns, you know, you get this nice little quaint retail kind of experience with some commercial on the main strip. But we kind of don't really have that right now. And so my concern with this designation is, does that hinder that ability for us to not just modernize homes or have people have the facade of a heritage area, but can we really transform this place to an actual destination where people can shop and, you know, drive through, instead of just driving through the town to get through the town, they actually would stop, maybe have a coffee, or, you know, we can actually have some business in that area. Because I'll be honest with you, you look at other stretches along 27, they're fantastic. And you get through Bond Head, you close your eyes, you go.
Thank you for the question. I think with respect to, so the Heritage Conservation District would not necessarily enable that change. I think there would be, you know, and this is something that we can discuss in the future about community improvement plans. I've even seen Kleinberg develop their own economic development strategy that kind of looks to work with property owners to bring mixed uses into the district. I should note that the Heritage Conservation District does not change the zoning or the land use permissions as of right. So if still a property owner would have to come in, apply for a rezoning. If a coffee shop's not permitted, we'd go through the process like we do with all the Planning Act applications, but at the end look for a built form that reflects the Bond Head heritage. So it's kind of the first step in what might be many steps.
Okay, I've got Councillor Harper next.
Thanks, Mayor. My little crooked wing there, sorry. I think Alan touched on this a bit when he talked about the price differentiality. There really is, I looked at this too, I was like, does it really lower the land value, HCDs? There's no evidence from municipal or provincial sources that say that an HCD designation really lowers property values. Now, you weren't, like, comparable things like Niagara on the Lake, Unionville, Kleinberg has already been mentioned. They have properties that maintain or actually increase the value. Now, while the data shows that it either maintains the value or increases the value, it doesn't talk about the fact of the real estate. And I think this is maybe where you're going about with what your perception. And that perception is that, you know, buyers don't really want the extra cost processes or restrictions that avoid, like, purchasing in an HCD. So, like, realtors will highlight you know, designation as a constraint, which is what I think Alan was talking about. Reducing the buyer pool, it lowers turnover. So even if the prices hold, marketability, it can be slower because of the heritage prestige, which creates that perception that it's lowering the, I guess, the value of the property, which is fair. I mean, one without the other. If it doesn't turn over rate fast enough, then you're really holding on to the cost. Maybe you don't want it. But when it talks about the constraints there, and I think, you know, some of this really talks about the soft touches when people do buy the property or the new homeowners that take it over, when they want to do renovations, do they have to use the same materials to try to keep the facade or the heritage look and feel based if they were in a HCD designation? So will they be forced to have these costs? Now, I know you say that the tax rebate program is available to help offset those costs, but if they're forced to maintain those facade of like the heritage designation of the brick or the look and feel, that might actually cause some negative outlook to them. So are they forced to use that?
No, the district plan encourages kind of a like-for-like material, but I think it also recognizes that there are new construction materials out there that do pay homage to heritage, but without being the true, like a wood, but it's a vinyl. I'm not a construction person, but it's a vinyl plank tile, for example, that looks and feels like wood, but might not actually be wood. And we can deal with that on a case-by-case basis with property owner by property owner. So we would want kind of the general feel, but it doesn't have to be from the same tree, from the same type of wood, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, thank you for answering that. That really alleviates probably a lot of questions for a lot of other people out there that were thinking that, and hopefully that covers off a lot of like those myths. Even for me too, like I thought, okay, maybe I have to use the like for like material. What's the cost value of that? But that's, I think I'm glad to know that the soften approach, even on the homeowners or even renovations, because I've done a lot of projects on King Street West, the Spadina area downtown, even into the opposite area over on Lower Main Street and on Lakeshore as well. So I've seen that build-up approach that Councillor Giordano was mentioning in regards to having those mixed-use designations and using either maybe a like-for-like material, but also the new construction material to still kind of maintain that presence. I think that's going to be something that could benefit Bond Head, especially like a grocery store or something that mixed use like that. I mean, look at the Loblaws when they tore down that old Loblaws factory right on Lakeshore and Spadina. I was part of that project. I know what they were trying to designate, right? Looks beautiful, actually. You still think it's part of that 1900s first Loblaws supermarket or factory, right? But I think this is probably going the right approach with the softened touch that you've had on there, and hopefully it doesn't burden everybody. But how are we going to basically defunk a lot of those perceptions? What are we as a town prepared to do in regards to communication so that people can understand that? Is there a plan to update our website? Is there a notice or a flyer or something that going out there that we have to help alleviate these stresses or thoughts?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes. So we would look to open up, update our website with some pamphlets and materials. Also, even just educating some of our staff, such as the building department. So if a property owner comes in and wants to do something, it can say, "Oh, you're listed. Go talk to Thomas," or whatever the case may be. So definitely looking to update the town's materials, website, physical print, social media campaigns. I know our committee does our Heritage Committee always has great ideas of how to kind of get that information out there into residents' hands.
All right, thank you. And I've got Councillor Kite next.
Yeah, just from some of the comments made today. First of all, I think this has been a 7-year process from 2018. Yes, COVID did happen, but we've had public meetings since. The response from the residents, because we did ensure that we knew who was talking at the community meeting, was mostly very positive. And there was a lot of education going on there as to what they can and cannot do, and the feedback was positive. As far as sequencing goes, I think this is the best first step before we do the development. How can you conserve heritage after the fact? So this is the right way to go. And yes, we do need servicing in the downtown core. And yes, we do need the bypass, but this is just a good first step.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I have one question. On the Heritage District drawing, where it has the layout of the whole designation, the southeast side has a border that runs by, and I don't know if it stops 6 line. There's a line there. There's a line on this drawing. It's on the ARA drawing. And I'm just thinking, does that follow the lot lines? So the very easterly line, when it comes down going south, is that the end of the property line for people? Because I'm just thinking, we don't have to go that far south. I think we can stop at that house, the last house coming out of Bond Head, Highway 27. Just move that line back, and if that other line, can we put that? It's in their presentation, I think. AR. There's a bound.
62.
Is it 62? It's page 5 on this. But that, see okay, so the southeast, the east southerly portion, the designation goes quite far without any housing past that. So I was just thinking if we shorten that up, and then the actual east boundary, is that on the lot line there? Is that on the people's lot lines?
Yes, to answer your question, yes. So that's 2875 County Road 27. The heritage attribute is kind of located between the 2 blue parcels on the right-hand side. So the attribute itself would only apply to that house. So the rest of it would not, if that property were to ever be severed, for example, the boundary would effectively change.
Okay, but the southerly, where it goes south and there's nothing there, can we come back and just drop the line right there?
Yeah, it follows the current 2875 property boundary.
Okay, any further comments or questions from council? Okay, seeing none. So further act, council will receive the staff report for information. I have a recommendation that report PLN 2025-53 be received, that the comments received in writing and or made at the public meeting be received, and that the Office of the Community Planning consider the matters raised and address the same in the passing of the bylaw, and the bylaw adopting the Bradford or the Bond Head Heritage Conservation District Plan be presented to council at the earliest opportunity following the conclusion of the October 14, 2025 public meeting. Mover seconder, moved by Councillor Kike, seconded by Councillor Dykey. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. Passed. Okay. Thank you, everyone. We're on to 4.4, public information meeting, application, official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and draft plan of subdivision. Owner applicant FMC Bradford Park Lands Limited, address 3664, line 8. Planning file D09-25-03, D14-25-11, and D12-25-13. So planning staff will now present the contents of the staff report. Please note that staff report being presented pertains to a proposed official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and the draft plan of subdivision. The presentation by staff will contain an update on comments received to date and does not include a recommendation on the proposal. Town staff will provide a report at a later date, which will also reflect and consider the public comments made during the public meeting and written submissions received before the report is written. Thomas, back to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It's great to be here again. So I will be presenting on the official plan zoning bylaw amendment application and draft plan of subdivision for the property known as 3664, line 8. If we could go to the next slide. So tonight I'll be discussing the purpose of the application and the public meeting, provide a brief overview of the subject land, review any notices, go over our existing land use planning policy, and provide some concluding remarks. So if we go to the next slide. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is a statutory requirement held under the Planning Act. Because applications were deemed complete, we are obligated to hold this public meeting for public comment, to receive public comments on the application. Following this evening, we are continuing to review the public materials submitted on behalf of the applicant, and in the future we will be providing a recommendation report to council. And as a reminder, further to what the mayor said, we will not be making a decision this evening, and we're still reviewing the application. If you could go to the next slide. The subject property is located west of Highway 400 at the northeast corner of Side Road 5 and Line 8. It is approximately 40-hectare property, 98.6 acres, and currently features agricultural buildings and residences, as well as a telecommunications tower. It is currently surrounded by other agricultural properties, smaller residential lots, as well as a small cemetery in the bottom right corner, and it is also located within the employment lands. Just on the boundary, or just on the image, the yellow overlay is the rough boundary of the Highway 400 employment lands. If we could go to the next slide. The applicants have submitted an official plan amendment, a zoning bylaw amendment, and a draft plan of subdivision to achieve a 22-lot subdivision for employment and employment supportive uses. In addition to the blocks for employment uses, there'd be 2 blocks for stormwater management, 3 blocks for a channel, an existing channel, with proposed access to Side Road 5 and Line 8. Next slide. Notice of tonight's public meeting was done in accordance with the Planning Act. Signage was erected on the subject property, and notice was sent to 120 meters, but expanded to 750 meters, and sent to a total of 40 property owners. In addition, the notice was published in Bradford Today and included on the town's website, and was also included on the town's Gross Services Data Hub. Next slide. The subject property is in the 2003 official plan, and it is designated Employment Lands Reserve Area D, as well as environmental protection. The Area D is that orangey brownie color, and the environmental protection is the green color. Currently, it is intended that these lands be protected for employment uses beyond the year 2031. If we could go to the next slide. In zoning bylaw 2010-050 as amended, the lands are zoned future development and environmental protection, and currently permits limited uses, primarily agricultural uses. If we go to the next slide. The official plan amendment, the applicants are seeking to redesignate the property to the Highway 400 Industrial Commercial Area C designation, and are looking to amend the zoning bylaw to the 400 Lands Industrial Commercial Exception Zone. They are not seeking any zoning relief from the parent zone standards, but are looking to include additional uses such as an animal clinic, banquet hall, places of amusement, assembly, or places of entertainment, self-storage facility, or a wholesale establishment, which aren't currently permitted in the parent zone. Next slide. In addition to the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment, they are also seeking draft plan approval of an employment and employment use subdivision with 22 blocks, 2 blocks for stormwater management, 3 blocks for a drainage channel, and 2 streets, Street A and Street B, that would provide access to Side Road 5 and Line 8. Next slide. The applicant has submitted a number of studies detailing technical information, which are currently under review by town staff, and are listed. And these are available for public consumption if they so wish to contact me, and I can send it to them. If we could go to the next slide. We've currently received 1 public comment from a member of the public. They requested a copy of the draft plan. In addition, we've received standard comments from the County of Simcoe, Canada Post, and Bridge and Bell Canada, and internal departments have provided no comments or standard comments. We still are awaiting detailed comments from Development Engineering and the Ministry of Transportation. So next, I am in the audience this evening is the applicant as well as the representative from IPS. We'll open up the floor to them to provide some additional comments, as well as open up the floor to members of the public and questions of council. And if anyone does wish to receive future updates on this application, to contact me at tdysart@townofbwg.com or sign the sign-in sheet at the back of the room. But that's my presentation for this evening. Happy to answer any questions. And as I said, Kevin Burchard from IPS and John Albert are here as well.
All right. I invite the applicants up if they'd like to add further details to this application. Please come on up.
Very good. I think it works a little better now. My name is Kevin Burchard. I'm a planner with IPS Consulting, Inc., and I'm representing the applicant this evening, FMC, Bradford Park Lands Limited. Here with me tonight are 2 owners from the company Gala Developments, Vito Valenta, who is the Vice President of Real Estate Development, and Leo Pelosi, who is a senior manager planning and development. So they are here really to monitor the events tonight and would be available for questions if necessary, I would expect. Mr. Dysart has given a very complete presentation this evening, so I'm not really planning on going through the detail of his presentation again, but I do wish to add some additional comments to his presentation. Some of the technical details that I wanted to bring to the forefront are dealing with traffic impact, traffic studies that were prepared by Crozier Engineering this June. So we've looked at the current conditions and, of course, the ultimate conditions for traffic generation from this site. And the proposed development will generate about 226 two-way auto trips during the peak hour and about 27 two-way truck trips during the weekday AM and PM peak hours. So we're anticipating that and perhaps I can ask staff to bring up the subdivision plan that was in the last report. We can do that just for reference. The accesses to the Fifth Side Road and 8th will operate on level of service B, so they're very quite acceptable transportation access and level of service. The intersection of the Fifth Side Road, that's County Road 53, and the 8th line is expected to operate at about 85% capacity. So we're not proposing that it be signalized as a result of this development going forward. So in short as well, we're not anticipating any impacts with the proposed bypass ramps, etc., for the bypass itself. So from a traffic point of view, we know that and we think that this site will continue to will operate at an acceptable level on into future and full development. In terms of hydrogeology of the site has generally a higher water table on that site, a meter or more below grade. We know that residences in the area obtain water from private wells. We don't expect there will be any impact from this development on the servicing of private residences in the area. In terms of the functional servicing, the access to the site, of course, for sanitary gravity will be from line 8, about midsection. There is going to be a water main that will be brought up the west side of the Highway 400, so it's tapping into that water main to service development. The development will obviously follow the street network, or the sanitary servicing will follow the street network and discharge into that area. Water servicing will be provided from the south to the north, and there's 2 servicing connections that will be provided off of line 8 to service the development. As was indicated in Mr. Dysart's presentation, we have 2 stormwater management ponds. They're identified in blue on that plan. We will meet pre-development discharge requirements, as is typical the requirement in any development. So we're achieving effective stormwater management control on a property. The last point, maybe second to last point that I wanted to reach is that you see the environmental area, the green area. That's actually, of course, as you're probably aware, Penville Creek. It's really functioning as an agricultural drain. So the Penville Creek is going to be remediated as part of this development. So retained in roughly the same position. There'll be some tweaking to accommodate MTO drainage coming in. There'll also be on the west side an upgrading of the culvert under line 5. I think the last point I wanted to raise is dealing with the archaeological conditions on the site. We've undertaken a stage 2 archaeology, which is typical in a development as we go forward. And we've identified, we didn't find any archaeological resources, but the point that I wanted to emphasize, and it may have some community concern or significance, it was mentioned a little bit earlier that the property is immediately adjacent to the Sutherland United Cemetery. And as such, we will be conducting a stage 3, which is a recovery archaeological investigation on the site, just to make sure that everybody is where they're supposed to be, and we're not going to have any disturb any remains that are on site. So that'll be done. Just finishing up then, I think I've been around this community quite a while now, and I think it's been the community's aspiration, council after council, to see industrial and economic development occur, and particularly industrial and economic development that creates jobs in the community. So this isn't an application to create a warehousing operation, a multiple warehousing operation. We have 22 blocks. They're in the area of a hectare, so that's 4 acres in area. So we're looking to create freestanding manufacturing operations that are going to create jobs for this community, which is, I think, in complete alignment with this council's interest in the success of previous councils that I've seen. So I think in that respect, it's something that is well sought after. This development group, the Gala Development Group, is already active in residential development in this community, as I think you're probably already aware. But you should also be aware that they are involved in employment and industrial and commercial projects GTA-wide, and they have the capacity and track record of delivering on their projects and building them out. That's what they are about. So I hope that we can see in 3 years' time that this development is coming to term, to fulfillment in active building and development on the site. And I think that would be something that certainly our clients would look forward to, and certainly would benefit this community. Finally, there is one sort of overarching issue that I want to raise, and I know that the town and their staff are very much aware of it, and that's electrical service supply to this area of the community. And obviously this development is going to be dependent upon the provision of this supply, as are others on the west side of particularly the highway, the 400 highway. Our clients are committed to working with the town and your staff, particularly, who I've had direct experience with in approaching the ministry level governments and securing discussions and moving applications forward, and particularly as they related to the bypass. So I know that the town is on this, and I know that it's important to the town as well as our clients. So I'm raising it as a point of observation more than anything else. And I do appreciate your involvement and your future commitment to getting this these infrastructures in place, because I think that's what will really bring this development forward. Those are my comments. I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. We'll hopefully move that timeline even faster if we can. So, okay.
So did you say, Mr. Mayor, did you say it comes faster?
Yeah, we'll do our best. All right, so public participation. Members of the public are now invited to address council and provide any comments and ask questions. Please provide your name and speak directly into the microphone. If residents have a prepared written submission that they are reading from, please submit that to the clerk upon completion of your presentation. So I do have 2 members of the public that signed up. So I will call up the first one, Ken Scotch. If you'd like to come up.
Mayor,
It's on, yeah.
and council members and members of the public. My name is Ken Scotch. My wife and I grew up and were raised in Bradford area. I would like to talk a little bit about that white rectangular. Could you put that map back on, please? Thank you. That little rectangle, I'd like to talk about that white rectangular that is on the left side at the top of the subject property. That little rectangular is our home. About 40 years ago, my wife and I built our home. It took us a while. We moved in about a year, and for 3-4 years we lived in green piney plywood floors, temporary doors, temporary kitchens, cupboards, temporary vanities, temporary curtains, you name it, it was temporary. Mayor Leduc, while I was writing this, I actually started thinking that I never actually got an occupancy permit. So I don't know what we should do about that. I hope that that's okay. All the temporary stuff didn't really matter to my wife and I, along with our now 3 kids, because now we had a home of our own. We celebrated Christmases, birthdays, anniversaries, and a lot of parties with our 3 kids and 6 grandchildren at our home. One of the more memorable ones was our daughter thought it would be a great idea in November to invite 100 of our closest friends and relatives for our 30th anniversary. A good time was had by all, and I know our septic system got a really good workout that day. Moving on to more recent times, it was one of our saddest days when we found out the used property had been sold, because for 40 plus years they had been such incredible neighbors. A few months after the used deal had gone through, a person showed up at our door saying that he represented the developer that had bought the used property, and he wanted to know if we'd be interested in selling our home. We said to make us an offer and you'd go from there. He told us that he would get back to us in a week or 2 with an offer. About 16 months later, he came back with the offer. The offer was so low that according to the MLS at the time, it would have been one of the lowest 3 or 4 price houses for sale in all of Bradford. We wouldn't have even been able to buy a semi in Bradford if we accepted the offer. Also, if the main reason for a developer to buy our house would be to tear it down, it was very surprising to see all the number of conditions on the offer. It was almost like if you had an old scrap car in the backyard and somebody approached you, wanted to buy it for parts, they make you an offer for the car and then they tell you they would like you to get the car certified. The individual representing the developer contacted us multiple times in person and by email. It didn't take us long to realize that we couldn't trust or believe anything that he said. A while ago, I talked to a member of the town staff about our property, and this individual said that if we didn't want to sell, we didn't have to sell. There are a couple of things I would like to ask the council members directly tonight. One would be, would any of you sell your house that you live in for 60 cents on the dollar? Would any of you want to live in the middle of an industrial and commercial area? Think about that. And 3, would any of you think it would be a safe place to have your little grandchildren running around playing in the backyard? Now, a totally other matter with the already increased traffic on the 5th Side Road. Sometimes it's a scary proposition getting out of the driveway, mainly because of the brow of the hill is so close to us on the north side. About a year ago, there was a huge car accident rollover right at the end of the driveway. Just this Sunday, cars going south towards 88 were backed up all the way past our house. That is 1.5 miles. Couldn't imagine what it would be like getting out of the same driveway when all those commercial and industrial buildings would be built that are being proposed. I think the gentleman, if I heard him right, just said there would be a bit additional if I heard them right, would be an additional 450 vehicles a day. Like the traffic on the Fifth Side Road, I guess the town's monitoring it. It's just enormous right now. A couple weeks ago, I attended a council meeting here, and Councillor Joseph Giordano made a statement. My wish would be that this council honor his request. He said in that statement, we have to do everything we can to encourage commercial development, but at the same time, we need to protect the long-term property owners. We were there, I'm not sure, over 45 years now. And to have us be that there, I don't know, if that lot, commercial lot got sold, and if it were, like, I don't know if we would get a discount on everything there or what, but it just doesn't feel or seem right that this would take place. In closing, council members, I think if in 20 years' time from now, the subject property is all built up and the person is driving by in a car and he sees one residential house surrounded by all these factories and commercial buildings, he would say to himself, how in the hell was that possible? And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ken. I've got John Clark next.
Good evening, Mayor Leduc and councillors. My wife and I are owners of just up from Ken there, 3077 Side Road 5. So if you look at the map there, top left corner, we're the neighboring property that's right there. I just want to echo many of the points that Ken just mentioned. Maybe not as well as he did, but my wife's family and herself have lived there for 20 years and approximately, and I've lived there with her now that we own the place for the last 6. Just doing a little bit of research in the last couple days regarding this matter. As Thomas was mentioning, they want to redesignate the employment land reserve to Highway 400 lands industrial commercial. And in mentioning that, he said the employment land reserve was intended to protect for employment uses beyond 2031 and under the official town plan, and I presume that means from 2031 to 2051, which is not now, and should only be started to be considered in 5 years from now. Just a couple more points. So as Ken mentioned, that as a residential homeowner, there are many unknowns involved in seeing this land developed around us. I know on the north side of us, it's another approximately 100 acres that is under the same designation in the official town plan, employment land reserve. So enabling this to go forward would, I presume, fast track the parcel north of us to be fast tracked as well, which we don't want. So we have many questions, such as what limits will there be on what they can build next to our affected homes? How will this affect our property taxes? I know they said they've done some studies, including traffic. However, if you live on the Fifth Side Road and you see the traffic every day, you'll know there are it can be quite tricky to get in and out of your property at times. What are the setbacks going to be in? How high can they build next to us? I think, I forgot his name, but the gentleman back there said our well wouldn't be affected, but time would tell based on what they put in. Another question my wife and I were wondering is how can we be protected from the dust and dirt when they start excavation? We happen to be lucky enough to own a pool, and we don't want our pool to be filled with dirt every day that we wish to use it, and we wish to have our windows open in the summer. Just touching on that, we also have a home-based business that involves our pool, and that would be negatively affected due to those concerns. The other thing I was looking at was how this amendment could affect the other amendments that was listed on the town website. It's changing the map. For instance, on one of the official town maps, it has potential collector roads drawn into, I know they're potential, but how does that affect those roads? And are those being considered? And in closing, how will the town protect residential property owners from these developers and developments? How will the town help us maintain our health, property value, and quality of life during the projected development? And are there any compensation, acquisition, or mitigation options available to the homeowners? Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thank you. We'll call for a second call for the public to come speak. State your name.
Good evening, Councillor Laura Andrews. I just have a question about the roads. You have, I think they want to come out on the 8th and on the 5th from this development. Will the lanes be going to 4 lanes on the 8th and 4 lanes on the 5th? Because we just had some work done on the 5th and nothing's changed. So my concern is all these trucks making rights and lefts, going north and south. If you watched when Brian was farming, they would go into the northbound lanes or the southbound lanes, making those turns. And even sometimes ourselves coming out of the driveway, depending for driving the truck. So our concern is adding the 400 vehicles with the traffic congestion that's already started with the southbound industrial area at the 400 with the new development down there. Now the cars are coming north and south to that development. That would be the 400 southbound development. So we get a lot of traffic congestion. My concern is, will there be lights at the 8th and the 5th? And will those, the 8th and the 5th go to 4 lanes? Because I don't see 200, I think the gentleman said, I'm sorry, over 200 industrial trucks, depending on what they'll be adding to that development. I don't see the traffic flowing very well.
I think he said 450 vehicles, did you not?
Well, my concern is the big trucks, depending on, like, if they're, depending on what's now going to be able to be developed in that area, the industries that will be in that area. If there are large trucks, my concern would be the
lanes and the
lanes.
lights. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'll call for anybody else who would like to speak on this application.
Can I ask a question, you mean?
Yep.
Is there already...
You should come to the, Ken, you should come to the mic if you don't mind,
sorry.
so the general public can hear you also.
At my age.
I know.
The question is, I know years ago there's water that went by down the 8th, all the way under 400 going east. Is there already existing sewers?
No, not there yet.
So when is the tentative date that sewers will be installed in that area?
This site,
Yeah.
when they actually do the development itself.
So it
It's all dependent on the development. They'll have to put all that infrastructure in.
So don't you have to bring the sewers there before the development starts?
The infrastructure will have to be put in before they build anything.
So when is the proposed date that they're going to?
Oh, there is no proposed date right now. We're at a public meeting, so we haven't even got no recommendations are coming out tonight. We're just looking through the public meeting.
I'm just
So
trying
we
to.
don't really have a date.
Yeah.
We don't really have that date, Ken.
I think when I asked this to, I think it was Mr. McKnight a couple of years ago, it was like in a couple of years' time, and now it's a couple of years. So is it still a couple of years' time?
The economy has changed quite a bit, so it's.
So does that mean it's been moved up or moved back or the same or what?
At this time, we're at the public meeting. We don't really have a date on when the service will get there, to tell you the truth. We don't have that right now. So
I guess what I'm getting at, Your Honor, is if you don't have sewers, isn't everything all this kind of premature? Or do you think you run this, or you line this all up, then you bring the sewers in? Is that the idea?
it'll all go through that process eventually, yes, and the sewers and infrastructure will get there before they build.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll get there.
About the volume of cars, do you accurately do a car count? How often do you do that accurate car count on the Fifth Side Road? Because it's really interesting that they're going to add 450 more vehicles on the road.
That answer can get to you. I'm sure we can get the accurate car counts. We will get the. You can ask all those questions, and we'll definitely get you as much information as we can. We do car counts.
Okay.
Through our community, we do that. So I just don't know when the last one was done there.
Okay.
But they do a traffic study. They do the whole traffic study and everything. That's part of the application process. So.
This is maybe you guys can answer this. The gentleman said that wells probably wouldn't be affected at all by this. Do they, before they start construction, do they give the, say my homeowner to the north, for example, would they give him a certificate guaranteeing that his well water wouldn't be affected before they start construction?
That'll all be part of the process in the sense that they will.
Okay.
Sorry. Tough questions you're asking me right now, but I definitely will tell you that there'll be monitoring of the wells. There'll be monitoring. I know that happens. We monitor wells, so that'll probably be part of the process. We have a bunch of questions that were asked earlier, so let me see if I can get our planning staff up here to answer those questions that were asked of yourself and John, and we'll see if we get some answers to those questions, and that might help you through some of the other questions you're having.
Okay. I really appreciate your time, Council.
No, I thank you, and you can reach out anytime. You can get us anytime you want. So can I invite, okay, if the applicant wants to come up and answer some of these questions, we'd appreciate that.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of quick things. Whenever you give numbers out at a council meeting, invariably, I should repeat them again. This was for PM, AM, and PM peak hour. We had 27 two-way truck movements and 226 auto trip movements. So those are the numbers. So it isn't an intensive trucking operation, on and on it goes. I want to speak to a couple of things, and this is speaking to Mr. Scott. And I perhaps should have given this a little more time in my presentation, but obviously his house has been pointed out as being surrounded by this development. And of course, this development is part of the growth management strategy that the municipality is undertaking now. And it's been forecast to 2051 through the Simcoe County Official Plan Amendment number 7 that these lands will be needed for employment use. So where it was considered a future reserve in the 2021, I'm going to drop my numbers here, official plan and the earlier official plan documents, and indeed in the current document, the discussions have been going on for quite some time in forecasting the economic growth and development of the community, and a determination has been made at the county level, and it's being implemented through the municipal level, that these lands are going to be required for employment use by 2051. So it's no longer being considered a reserve anymore in the planning policies and agendas of this community. It's now the wheels are turning, so to speak, to bring these lands forward for development. In terms of Mr. Scott's lands, he is correct, and obviously he's mentioned that there were discussions about purchase and sale. They haven't been concluded yet, is my only information. In my capacity as a land use planner, I don't get involved in real estate transactions and understandings, but I think there has been discussion going back and forth. When we did set out the subdivision plan, we were mindful that obviously these lands are privately held and may not be part of this development. And what happens then is the development has to contemplate that these lands would be continued to be occupied, and that the land uses would have to be considered and recognize a sensitive land use, which is a residential land use. So I think ultimately we would hope and plan that that transaction would occur and the lands would be brought into the development appropriately. But we also have to plan for the other scenario where they're not. And this approach is really setting a lot aside where it would be impacted by the residential use, the sensitive land use, and the uses on that property would be very limited, and probably that lot would be held in reserve. And we'd have to consider the other surrounding lots and land uses and how they potentially impact that property. But that's discussion as we go forward in the review process. In terms of timing, we know we're at least 3 years away from development, so there is time for these discussions to unfold and occur and take place. And ultimately, we hope that for everyone's interests that they're reconciled going forward. So I think that answered most of the questions: the traffic, the growth management strategy, and the development of sensitive land uses, or the accommodation of sensitive land uses in the area with the development of the industrial lands. But I just want to emphasize, of course, that this is something that is foreseen in terms of development in this community, is required for the economic growth and development of this community. And we're facilitating this growth as we bring this plan forward for consideration for approval.
Okay, thank you. And I'd like, our staff, would you like to add any comments to anything that Kevin's put on the, any further comments? No? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I'll get to council, yeah. All right, so now it is council's turn. So who have I got up first? Right here, I go to Councilor Harper first. Councilor Brown next.
Thanks for the presentation and addressing the concerns. I was a bit put off that only until you were called out about the rectangle that you addressed it. I would have thought you would have come out ahead of time and addressed it, as it looks like one of the major outliers. When I look at this development, it screams two things: that either it's going to have an option A or an option B, and one of them's going to either decline the entire development or basically approve the exception of Block 5. Because right now, when I look at this, it represents poor planning, and I understand where you're coming from with having to work around sensitive development or residential area. But when I say it represents poor planning, I'm talking about neighborhood integration and disregard for existing residents. I'm glad that you're still trying to work, or your owners and company and developers still trying to work towards that resolution. I would strongly suggest getting a resolution before coming back here for that answer, because I could never approve this. And even though that we want it, I still would not approve something like that. I mean, just looking at it. So yeah, the most sensible approach here was to try to come back with. We've asked other developers to do the same thing in regards to either roadways or access ways, and they've done that, and they've taken the time. They worked a resolution. I mean, you have 21 other blocks as opposed to one missing there. So I mean, it might be in your interest to work it out. I'll just throw that out there.
Okay, I've got Councillor Giordano.
May I respond, Mr. Mayor, through you to Mr. Harper, or Councillor Harper. So first of all, I want to say that this doesn't represent bad planning or poor planning. There's a lot in this plan, a lot thought that's gone forward, particularly in the treatment of Penville Creek, for instance, as one example. That represents good planning and appropriate planning. It's consistent with provincial policy, county policy, municipal policy. I appreciate that we have an unresolved issue in this plan, and it's our intent to resolve this issue in a way that's amicable. I'm not going to speak to offers and counter offers that have taken place. I think that'd be inappropriate. But I think the planning process is one that is meant to address these kinds of public issues and in forums such as this, and bring them to resolution. And so we need to keep going. And if need be, we can't come to a resolution, we will have to come back to council and see how we move forward. But I'm hoping that that resolution does occur, and I think it's reasonable that it does. So let's all find a way to make that happen is my message, and we'll be doing that from our end.
Okay. Yeah. You want another supplementary?
So respectfully, I'm not saying the whole development is poor planning. I was really only talking about the neighborhood integration, and I'll put that clearly. So again, I'll stress to keep working on resolving that. I wouldn't like to see you come back with it unresolved. I don't know if that'll be favorable. It wouldn't be favorable from this chair.
All right, thank you. Councillor Giordano.
Thanks. So a couple things. So a fast track. You know, we're always talking about trying to protect farmland and everything else, and this is being asked to be fast tracked. But yet we know that certain areas are having issues with electrical allocation in order for them to be feasible to go ahead and build. So I'm a little bit, you know, like, do we want to fast track more farmland? But then I look at it, and it's already going to be zoned in the future, and I'm aggressive when it comes to the right developments. This is exactly what we actually need based on the subdivision plan, where it shows the commercial industrial block layouts and everything else, where we can get, you know, we're not talking, you know, it's a subdivision, it's an industrial commercial subdivision. So it's something that is a huge gap in this community. My concern is that we go, you know, if this moves further ahead, but nothing takes place for 10 years. And it's just another opportunity to, you know, take it, resell the plans, you know, and just, you know, I'd be more excited if I know that this is a reality. Hopefully all the other entities come to play, including electrical, for the allocation to go ahead. The other thing too is that I assume that septics would be integrated in the short term and then connected to servicing in the future. I know that, you know, a lot of developments that are done in other areas as well, that's usually what they'll do, is they'll put you know, the septic systems in place to get their buildings up and running and operational, and then they'll convert and connect to city services when it's appropriate to do so. I will address something else though to Ken Scotch and his wife. I 100% stand by my statements that you referenced. To the consultant here, hope is not a strategy. So at the end of the day, it's not fair to leave this family, you know, sleepless nights and take years to settle. To the developer, if you want my support, you need to take care of this longstanding resident.
Okay, I've got Councillor Ferragini next, and then Councillor Craig. There was no question, but if you want to respond, go ahead.
I don't think septics are going to be viable on this development, and the reason is because, of course, they take a land base. and then that means you have less to build on in terms of your capacity. So I don't think they're going to be a viable option. I think the fast tracking is, in my comments earlier, was the process is moving as quickly as it can, and we understand that with official plan amendments, zone change. But there is other infrastructure that is required, electrical infrastructure that is required to service this development and area. And the fast tracking, I think, was in reference to a desire that that infrastructure be put in place to facilitate not only this development, but also the developments to the south. So it's, I think that is where we were going with that comment. And I appreciate your third comment about addressing Mr. Scott's concerns. And I can tell you that that's certainly on the minds of our client to do so. One final point, this is a development company. They build what they approve. And I can tell you that, and I can offer, I'm sure that they would be happy to give you a tour or show you some of the developments, and that might give you more comfort and in this company and what they're prepared to do and deliver. Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Ferragini.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation to staff. Mr. Bouchard, thank you to the residents who came out and spoke your concerns. I get it. The town has been looking for more industrial commercial spaces so that we can try to help offset our tax base, considering the majority of it is residential. We want to get better jobs. We want to get higher paying jobs and better opportunities in this town, especially around the 400 corridor. So this is why these lands have been placed in this position. Having said that, though, I never, ever like kicking a resident out of the house or asking them to leave because of development that is coming. There has to be consideration. So my comment to that is in regards to Mr. Scotch's property, that I would hope that the developer would go back and have a proper conversation based on his comments, if it is true, to lowball the resident on their home where they've lived and they've had their memories and everything like that, to me is insulting their intelligence. Shouldn't be done. You're building a business. You're making a ton of profit off of this project. This individual is losing their home. So to me, that's everything. So I would hope that clear heads come together to actually make something happen. But in regards to the actual development itself, I was hearing 3 years potentially. Hopefully, the electricity part of it has been touched on. Do we have, from my understanding, we have no answers on any kind of electricity going to these areas, and it could be quite some time. We might not get any help at all. They might not come for a while. I'm not sure. Do we have any town staff have any inkling or any idea when that electricity infrastructure would be put in place for this?
Thanks, Your Worship. The answers we've received so far from the IESO, from Hydro One, Electra, all the partners involved in power delivery, are not answers we're satisfied with yet. They're talking about infrastructure upgrades and improvements in a time frame that is a few years at least down the road to bring the levels of power we need, not just for the employment lands, but for the future development of the town as a whole. So we have been in discussions with more senior officials within the province and those agencies in an effort to not only accelerate the program, but to try and find some provincial investment in that infrastructure. So all those discussions are underway. I don't have a definitive answer for council, other than to say that we are pushing as hard as we can.
Thank you, Jeff. And that was kind of my point. Right now, there is no time frame. This is the first stage, and it's going to be a process going down, so the residents will be able to get more involved to see how this develops. But this is a first stage, and there's still plenty more time and plenty more things to happen to this point. So to Mr. Scotch and to the Andrews, it's not going to be something that's going to happen instantly. So you have plenty of time. And I would hope that the developers would also work with all surrounding properties to make sure that they don't affect the livelihoods of those who have been living there for generations. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Kike next.
I have three questions, but I'd also like to echo what Councillor Faragini said about making right with the neighbors. First question is, what's the next steps about, this is still reserve, or do we need to go back to the county and the OPA and all that? What's the process there? The second question is, do we have the water and sewer allocation for this? And what's the timing on running us? Where's the sewer main coming from? And then the third question is, the presenter mentioned that there was a high water table. Is there going to be any consideration for the cemetery, water table wise, that there won't be any negative effects on the Pioneer Cemetery at the southeast corner of the property?
Thanks, Your Worship. With respect to the second question on servicing allocation, yes, these lands are all within the planned service area for the Highway 400 employment lands. So there is capacity within the pumping station and the treatment plant for the area. With respect to connecting these lands to the current sanitary sewer, there's a trunk sewer to the south that terminates just south of County Road 88, east of Side Road 5. This applicant is in discussions and partnership with the owner of the lands immediately to the south of this site to construct that sewer in cooperation with the landowner to the south of that, which is on the north side of County Road 88. They're working on a plan together that will likely come to council within the next couple of months, kind of explaining how that will unfold. So those efforts are underway. And so really it's just a matter of when the lands are ready to go to market, that's when the infrastructure will be put into place. The third question, sorry, can you remind me? Cemetery. So as part of the hydrogeological investigations completed for this proposal, that type of assessment will be determined or undertaken through that effort. And the first question, did I do that one? Okay, yes. So
you got them all.
I got them.
Good. Okay. Any further comments or questions on this? Councillor Dykey is next.
Just a comment. I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to do it anyways. The bottom line is, bottom line, and just want to echo. You know, you look back history. The Scotches, like I said, bought the lot, built the house, raised their family, and to have such a big and Ben, I won't use that fancy word we talked about earlier, but luxurious. But when you build a big build a big subdivision like this, we have to think of all the neighbors. You know, when I look at it, you know, I realize that we need industrial, commercial lands. There's no doubt about it. This is in the official plan, but we have to, the town, the future councils have to really study the road patterns. The fifth side road that has to go 4 lanes. Safety is very important. That's a very busy road now. I've seen when the 400s backed up and the fifth road and 10th road get backed up tremendously. So I would hope that all the residents, other councillors use the word integrate. It's very important that we integrate our existing lifelong residents or any residents in the area, that we tie this in fairly for everybody. And you know, it's going to take years. You know, we talk 2 years, 3 years for hydro, run the infrastructure to the pumping station. It's going to take time. But you know, I understand that this is just the first stage of it. But at the end of the day, all this takes time. Just to write the subdivision agreement. You know, I'm sure there'll be another public meeting, but it's a process in order, in process, and I just hope that bottom line, that the residents are treated fairly and this gets all worked out. You know, I must admit something. When you talked about the cemetery, I actually didn't realize that it was mentioned, but there was a cemetery in the area. But just a little quick question: this is a 100 or 200 acre parcel? Because I remember when Mr. Hughes sold that 100 acre parcel to somebody, but this ties in 100 or 200? Just a quick question, and that's the end of my presentation.
Through your worship, it's a 100 acre parcel.
No, I got Councillor Sandu, Deputy Mayor Sandu, and then back to you.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to say that I want to thank the applicant, our staff, Mr. Clark, Mrs. Scotch, Ms. Andrews, for making their comments. As the mayor said earlier, there's no decision made tonight. This is what public meeting is for. I know that 9 of us around the table here, we hear the concerns that are brought up. Our staff make the notes of it, and I know consultants, they should be, or applicants, I know they do, they should be. And when the final report comes back, I know I do, we keep that in mind, what was brought up, has it been addressed, and how it's been addressed. And I can assure you when that report comes back, I'll be watching for that. This is your meeting in my mind, where public needs to give your input, whether it's against it, for it, and you have done that, and I appreciate you coming out and doing it. Thank you.
Councillor Craig?
I don't know whether it's just too much turkey over the weekend, but I think we're all tired. But I think I did have a first question that wasn't answered. What's the process for the official plan and the zoning? What's the next steps, and how does that all work out?
Thanks for reminding me. So the application's out in front of council tonight. We'll go through the typical review following this public meeting, and staff will report back with recommendations. Council would adopt the official plan amendment if you're so inclined, and at the moment that would go to Simcoe County Council for approval. That approval level is under review right now by the province, so who knows how it'll actually play itself out, but there will be a need for some level of approval. Well, maybe I don't even say that, but anyway, these applications will come back in front of council.
Yeah, that's what we're doing tonight, official plan amendment. Okay, any further comments or questions? Okay, thank you. And thank you, Deputy Mayor, for clarifying that. This is a public meeting. It is the opportunity for residents to come in and talk to us and have those questions back to the applicants, and that's the applicant's job to listen and hear, and eventually, but the key here is tonight, there is no decision made. There is no decisions being made. We'll wait for the staff report before we get into that. So we've had everybody comment. So further action, council will not make a decision on this matter tonight, but will receive their staff report for information. The matter referred back to staff for a further recommendation report at a later date. So I have a recommendation that report PLN 2025-49 be received, and that comments received in writing and or made at the public meeting be received, and that the Office of Community Planning consider the matters raised and addressed the same in the future recommendation report. I need a mover and a second to put this on the floor. Moved by Councillor Dykey, seconded by Councillor Ferragini. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. All right. We're near the end, folks. It is recommended that all comments or questions on planning applications be submitted in writing to planning@townofbwg.com. Comments or questions regarding the Bond Head Heritage Conservation District designation may be submitted in writing to Dissart, DYSART, @townofbwg.com. Written submissions are not required at a public meeting, but can be made at a later date and will be accepted up to the date that council makes a decision on the matter. Written submissions on planning matters will not be read at the council meeting, but will be forwarded to planning staff for consideration and or response. Council be apprised of all public comments received prior to making a decision on the application. If you wish to receive information on a specific planning application or to be notified of an upcoming meeting related to a planning matter, please email plan@townofbwg.com. So we're into confirmed proceedings. Recommendation that bylaw 2025-102, a bylaw to confirm proceedings of the council meeting dated October 14, 2025 be enacted. Moved by Councillor Harper, second by Councillor Scott. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And adjournment. Recommendation of this meeting hereby adjourned at 9:03. Moved by Councillor Giordano, seconded by Councillor Ferragini. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.